Hello. It seems to me that we are live now. Sorry, almost dropped something. I think I'm probably gonna have to plug my laptop in, so I'll do that while I have 0 people watching. I'll be back. Ah, okay. Disaster. Okay. Disaster solved. Oh, hello, 2 people. I had to. Oh, I'm sorry, it wasn't showing yet, Kyle. It just said 0. Now it says 1, so somebody else got so offended they left, so you're in good company. Oh, no, they're back. Yeah, sorry, just had to plug in my little computer to make sure that things are going well. I just realized that I can schedule these, so, that way we all know when I'm supposed to be on, including me. So that'll be nice, and then you can wait for me before I show up, which of course, you don't do that. um, I don't know if she's on here right now, but I heard that my close friend and almost relative, Serena, might be listening into these. She's a healthcare worker in Washington right now, which is absolutely bonkers, like crazy brave level. And she's just an incredible person. And I just want to shout out to her. Don't know if she's listening, when she's gonna listen in. I have this little pin for you, Serena, um, that I got a while ago. And I think it's a little tarot card, but it says La Serena on it. So that's for you, Serena, whenever you see this. But she's a healthcare worker. Show some love for her because she's like in the thick of it right now. So we support Serena here. Okay, let's talk about what happened yesterday. Did anybody get any of those words that I just said out of my mouth, or did I just throw them up? Okay, so yesterday. Oh my God, I remember. Okay, yesterday, Newland went to the theater to watch a play. And in this play, there's this moment where these 2 characters are like, we must say goodbye. And so they leave. And the man walks away, and the woman's like at the fireplace, like, God damn it, this sucks. She's looking away. The man comes back. He picks up like a ribbon that's tied to the back of her dress, and he like kisses it, and then he leaves. And Newland was like, damn, that kind of reminds me of Madame Olenska, but I have no idea why. Well, buddy, I have some news for you. So then he's like, "Oh shit, she's here." And so he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna sneak out the back," but then she sees him and she's like, "Damn." So he goes over and he like sits next to her and she's like, "So do you think he's gonna send her some yellow roses?" And he's like, "Damn, I've been found out." Which is incredibly beautiful and lovely and wonderful. Excuse me. But yeah, that's what happened yesterday. So let's find out what trouble Newland gets himself into today, with chapter 14. Okie doke. I'm putting my bookmark in a specialized place now, so I don't forget it. All right, let's do this. The Age of Innocence Chapter 14. As he came out into the lobby, Archer ran across his friend Ned Winslow, the only one among what Janey called his clever people, with whom he cared to probe into things a little deeper than the average level of club and chophouse banter. He had caught sight, across the house, of Winsett's shabby, round-shouldered back, and had once noticed his eyes turned toward the Beaufort box. The 2 men shook hands. The 2 men shook hands, and Winsett proposed a bock at a little German restaurant around the corner. Archer, who was not in the mood for the kind of talk they were likely to get there, declined on the plea that he had work to do at home, and Winsett said, "Oh well, so do I, for that matter. I'll be the industrious apprentice too." They strolled along together, and presently Winsett said, "Look here, what I'm really after is the name of the dark lady in that swell box of yours. With the Beauforts, wasn't she? The one your friend Lefferts seemed so smitten by." Archer, he could not have said why, was slightly annoyed. Archer is really not picking up on this. Oh my gosh, there are so many people here today. Hi, guys. I lost my place. Ah, what the devil did Ned Winsett want with Ellen Olenska's name? And above all, why did he couple it with Lefferts? It was unlike Winsett to manifest such curiosity. But after all, Archer remembered, he was a journalist. It's not for an interview, I hope, he laughed. Well, not for the press. Just for myself, Winsett rejoined. The fact is, she's a neighbor of mine. Queer quarter for such a beauty to settle in. And she's been awfully kind to my little boy, who fell down her area chasing this kitten and gave himself a nasty cut. She rushed in bareheaded, carrying him in her arms with his knee all beautifully bandaged, and was so sympathetic and beautiful that my wife was too dazzled to ask her name. A pleasant glow dilated Archer's heart. There was nothing extraordinary in the tale. Any woman would have done as much for a neighbor's child. But it was just like Ellen, he felt, to have rushed in bareheaded, carrying the boy in her arms, to have dazzled poor Mrs. Winsett into forgetting to ask who she was. That's the Countess Olenska, a granddaughter of old Mrs. Mingott's. Whew, a countess, whistled Ned Winsett. Well, I didn't know countesses were so neighborly. Mingotts ain't. They would be if you'd let them. Ah, well, it was their old, interminable argument. As to the obstinate unwillingness of clever people to frequent the fashionable, and both men knew that there was no use in prolonging it. I wonder, Winsett broke off, how a countess happens to live in our slum. Because she doesn't care a hang about where she lives, or about any of our little social signposts, said Archer, with a secret pride in his own picture of her. Huh. Been in bigger places, I suppose, the other commented. Well, here's my corner. He slouched off across Broadway, and Archer stood looking after him and musing on his last words. Ned Winsett had all those flashes of penetration. They were the most interesting thing about him, and always made Archer wonder why they had allowed him to accept failure so stolidly at an age when most men are still struggling. Archer knew that Winsett had a wife and child, but he had never seen them. The two men always met at the Century or at some haunt of journalists and theatrical people, such as the restaurant where Winsett had proposed to go for a bock. A bock? Sorry, I was reading comments and I keep getting distracted. You guys are so fun. He had given Archer to understand that his wife was an invalid, which might be true of the poor lady, or might merely mean that she was lacking in social gifts, or in evening clothes, or in both. Winsett himself had a savage abhorrence of social observances. Archer, who dressed in the evening because he thought it cleaner and more comfortable to do so, and who had never stopped to consider that cleanliness and comfort are two of the costliest items in a modest budget, regarded Winsett's attitude as part of the boring bohemian pose that always made fashionable people, who changed their clothes without talking about it, and were not forever harping on the number of servants one kept, seemed so much simpler and less self-conscious than the others. Nevertheless, he was always stimulated by Winsett, and whenever he caught sight of the journalist's lean, bearded face and melancholy eyes, he would rout him out his corner and carry him off for a long talk. Winsett was not a journalist by choice. He was a pure man of letters, untimely born in a world that had no need of letters, but after publishing one volume of brief and exquisite literary appreciations, of which 120 copies were sold, 30 given away, and the balance eventually destroyed by the publishers, as per contract, to make room for more marketable material, he had abandoned his real calling and taken a sub-editorial job on a woman's weekly, where fashion plates and paper patterns alternated with New England love stories and advertisements of temperance drinks. On the subject of hearth fires, as the paper was called, he was inexhaustibly entertaining, but beneath his fun lurked the sterile bitterness of the still young man who has tried and given up. His conversation always made Archer take the measure of his own life, and feel how little it contained, but Winsett, after all, contained still less, and though their common fund of intellectual interests and curiosities made their talks exhilarating, their exchange of views usually remained within the limits of a pensive dilettantism. The fact is, life isn't much a fit for either of us, Winsett had once said. I'm down and out, nothing to be done about it. I've got only one ware to produce, and there's no market for it here, and won't be in my time. But you're free and you're well off. Why don't you get into touch? There's only one way to do it, to go into politics. Archer threw his head back and laughed. There one saw at a flash the unbridgeable difference between men like Winsett and the others, Archer's kind. Everyone in polite circles knew that, in America, a gentleman couldn't go into politics. But since he could hardly put it that way to Winsett, he answered evasively. Look at the career of the honest man in American politics. They don't want us. I'm gonna weep. Who's they? Why don't you all get together and be they yourselves? Archer's laugh lingered on his lips in a slightly condescending smile. It was useless to prolong the discussion. Everybody knew the melancholy fate of the few gentlemen who had risked their clean linen in municipal or state politics in New York. The day was past when that sort of thing was possible. The country was in the possession of the bosses and the immigrant. Not sure how I feel about that one. And decent people, yikes, had to fall back on sport or culture. Who's speaking? Okay. I'm so not sure, so I'm gonna make a wild guess. This is Winsett. Okay. Oh God, I'm nervous. Culture. Yes, if we had it. But there are just a few little local patches dying out here and there for lack of, hoeing and cross-fertilizing. Hoeing, the last remnants of the old European tradition that your forebears brought with them. But you're in a pitiful little minority. You've got no center, no competition, no audience. You're like the pictures on a wall of a deserted house, the portrait of a gentleman. You'll never amount to anything, any of you, till you roll up your sleeves and get right down in the muck. That, or immigrate. God, if I could immigrate. I think I chose right. Archer mentally shrugged his shoulders and turned the conversation back to books, where Winsett, if uncertain, was always interesting. Immigrate. As if a gentleman could abandon his own country. One could no more do that than one could roll up one's sleeves and go down into the muck. A gentleman simply stayed at home and abstained. But you couldn't make a man like Winsett see that. And that was why the New York of literary clubs and exotic restaurants, though a first shake made it seem more of a kaleidoscope, turned out in the end to be a smaller box with more monotonous pattern than the assembled atoms of Fifth Avenue. That's an interesting passage. The next morning, Arthur scoured the town in vain for more yellow roses. In consequence of this search, he arrived late at the office, perceived that his doing so made no difference whatever to anyone, and was filled with sudden exasperation at the elaborate futility of his life. Why should he not be, at that moment, on the sands of St. Augustine with May Welland? No one was deceived by his pretense of professional activity. In old-fashioned legal firms like that of which Mr. Letterblair was the head, and which were mainly engaged in the management of large estates and conservative investments, there were always 2 or 3 young men, fairly well off and without professional ambition, who, for a certain number of hours each day, sat at their desk accomplishing trivial tasks or simply reading the newspaper. Though it was supposed to be proper for them to have an occupation, the crude fact of money-making was still regarded as derogatory, and the law, being a profession, was accounted a more gentlemanly pursuit than business. But none of these young men had much hope of really advancing in his profession, or any earnest desire to do so, and over many of them the green mold of the perfunctory was already perceptibly spreading. It made Archer shiver to think it might be spreading over him too. He had, to be sure, other tastes and interests. He spent his vacations in European travel, cultivated the clever people May spoke of, and generally tried to keep up, as he had somewhat wistfully put it to Madame Olenska. But once he was married, what would become of this narrow margin of life in which his real experiences were lived? He had seen enough of other young men who had dreamed his dream, though perhaps less ardently, and who had gradually sunk into the placid and luxurious routine of their elders. From the office he sent a note by messenger to Madame Olenska, asking if he might call that afternoon, and begging her to let him find a reply at his club. But at the club he found nothing, nor did he receive any letter the following day. This unexpected silence mortified him beyond reason. He got left unread. Oh my god, I do that all the time. um, I love that. Okay. This unexpected silence mortified him beyond reason, and though the next morning he saw a glorious cluster of yellow roses behind a florist's window pane, he left it there. It was only on the third morning that he received a line by post, a line, wow, by post from the Countess Olenska. To his surprise, it was dated from Skuytercliff, whither the van der Ludens had promptly retreated after putting the Duke on board his steamer. I ran away, the writer began abruptly, without the usual preliminaries. The day after I saw you at the play, and these kind friends have taken me in. I wanted to be quiet and think things over. You were right in telling me how kind they were. I feel myself so safe here. I wish that you were here with us. She ended with a conventional, yours sincerely, and without any allusion to the date of her return. The tone of the note surprised the young man. What was Madame Olenska running away from, and why did she feel the need to be safe? His first thought was of some dark menace from abroad. Then he reflected that he did not know her epistolary style, and that it might run to picturesque and that it might run to picturesque exaggeration. Women always exaggerated. And moreover, she was not wholly at her ease in English, which she often spoke as if she were translating from the French. Je me suis évadée. Put it that way, the opening sentence immediately suggested that she might merely have wanted to escape from a boring round of engagements, which was very likely true, for he judged her to be capricious and easily wearied of the pleasure of the moment. It amused him to think of the van der Ludens having carried her off to Skuytercliff on a second visit, and this time for an indefinite period. The doors of open to visitors, and a chilly weekend was the most ever offered to the few thus privileged. But Archer had seen, on his last visit to Paris, the delicious play of La Biche, Le Voyage de Monsieur Parichon. I'm so sorry if anyone actually speaks French. I'm so sorry. And he remembered Monsieur Parichon's dogged and undiscouraged attachment to the young man whom he had pulled out of the glacier. The glacier? The van der Ludens had rescued Madame Olenska from a doom almost as icy, and though there were many other reasons for being attracted to her, Archer knew that beneath them all lay the gentle and obstinate determination to go on rescuing her. He felt a distinct disappointment on learning that she was away, and almost immediately remembered that, on the day before, he had refused an invitation to spend the following Sunday with Reggie Shivers at their house on the Hudson, a few miles below Skuytercliff. He had had his fill, long ago, of the noisy, friendly parties at Highbank, with coasting, ice-boating, sleighing, long tramps in the snow, and a general flavor of mild flirting and milder practical jokes. He had just received a new box of books from his London bookseller, and had preferred the prospect of a quiet Sunday at home with his spoils. But now he went into the club writing room, wrote a hurried telegram, and told the servant to send it immediately. He knew that Mrs. Reggie didn't object to her visitors suddenly changing their minds, and that there was always room to spare in her elastic house. Buddy! oh, honey. That's the end of the chapter. He's in deep. And he doesn't even know he's in deep, which is the worst part. Oh no. Okay, well, boy, do we have something to look forward to tomorrow. What fun. I was gonna say something, but now I can't remember what I was gonna say. But that was a fun chapter. Oh, Newland. Oh, Newland. That's all I have for today. I have been thinking that once we finish this, which is still, we're like not even halfway through yet. But once we finish this, I think I'm going to do Sense and Sensibility because I've never read that one. And it's my favorite Nah, Pride and Prejudice, man. Pride and Prejudice, the Joe Wright version of Pride and Prejudice knocks me out every time. It's my second favorite Austen adaptation, the Pride and the no, the Sense and Sensibility with Kate Winslet and Emma Thompson and Alan Rickman and Hugh Grant. It's really fun. I highly recommend it. So that's my plan after this, but that's like a long way in the future. And Jane Austen structures her chapters very differently. So I might do like 2 or 3 chapters a day, depending on how long it takes me to get through. So that's what I have for today. I cannot wait to read through your little comments. It's going to be an exciting and good time. So, with that, I will see you all tomorrow. Same time, same place, same book, different chapter. Okie dokie. Goodbye. Goodbye.